Obviously, we're not going to make that deadline. So we got the community asking commissioners for an update, asking me for an update. Community is going to hold our commissioners accountable. They're going to hold me accountable. So this is my way of updating the commissioners because by law, I can't go to each commissioner and give them an update separately because it would be a walking quorum. So Mr. Williams, if you don't mind driving. And basically we want to go through, what was your plan? Go through the work orders that we've approved and that are upcoming?
Well, what I'd like to
Thank
do, by the way, good afternoon, Judge Garza and commissioners and members of the community. What I'd like to do is go through this agenda just as you have it before you. And if we need to delve into something in a greater depth, we can do that on the way.
Would you please address the
That's right.
group and let them know what your name is and with whom you work?
My name is Mark Williams, and I'm the program manager for the County of Rockport.
Thank you.
I work for Broadus and Associates. So this outline that I'm going to go through is basically describing the chain of events and chronological orders that sort of bring us to today's date regarding the design and construction of the courthouse. Basically, the document is an instrument to define clarity. And with that, the first thing I'd like to start with is the PGAL contract signing date, and that's actually PGAL, and I mispronounced it. But that signing date was the 29th of October, 2019. And following that, we had 3 design iterations. And the design iterations, as you all know, started with a 2-story. We went to a 3-story building, back to a 2-story, and then to a 3-story, and then back to a 2-story. So we spent a year of time out of the 14 months that the design team was allowed to design the project. We spent a year of time in the design phase, which is very unusual. So with that said, I'll move into the construction portion of the project. So we bid the project on the 9th of December, 2022. And immediately thereafter, we realized that, hey, we're over budget. So we went through an exercise of value engineering. It's called VE. And we were able to reduce the contract bid price by $256,854. And then in that VE, we had a line item that was called deduction of second floor roof insulation. And we were given a credit of $42,500 for that credit. And we'll come back to that later. The second item is the Teal contract was signed on the 8th of March, 2022. And we issued a construction notice to proceed on the 4th of April. And that timeline between those 2 dates was part of VE. And we had some drainage work that was being done in the city of Rockport. So we postponed the notice to proceed to kind of get some of that out of the way.
Mark, could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So the bid date was December of 2022 and the contract was signed in March of 2022?
The notice to proceed was given on the 4th of April and the contract was signed on the 8th of March. That's right.
Okay, but they were signed 8 months before the bid date?
It's 23, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, so it's 23, that's a misprint. So what I'm saying is we had about a month span between the signing of the contract and the date we issued a notice to proceed. And the reason for that is the city of Rockport had a excuse me, the Concho Street drainage project ongoing. And on the site that we were to occupy, we had materials from another contractor that basically were box culverts, and there were a lot of them. And that was to direct surface drainage through the Concho Street area. And those box culverts occupied the site, and it took quite a while to get all that moved. So change order number 2 was after we issued the notice to proceed, we still had some of that material on the job site. So we did a change order. The first change order was, or it was actually the second change order. The first change order was the VE, where we took the money out of the contract. Second one was, we dealt with this material still on the job site. So we issued change order 2, and that added about 18 days to the contract time. So that gave us a new contract date of Friday, the 22nd of August, 2023. Excuse me. The next item that sort of caused some construction delays were RFIs. And RFIs are basically requests for information. And these are generated by the contractor for clarification of the contract documents. These are RFIs are a result of either missing information or unclear direction in the contract documents. So presently, today, we are looking at RFI number 226. So that gives you an idea that we have, the contractors issued 226 requests for information. So apparently that tells you that there's a lot of unclarity that needs to be resolved in the contract documents. And then the other thing that impacted our construction was submittal delays. We had submittals that were issued by the contractor, and submittals really are the items that the contractor has selected for construction in terms of materials or products that comply with the plans and specifications. Sometimes they're substitutions for what's in the specs. These submittals take time to review. So when a submittal comes in, the process is the contractor posts the submittal on a project website we call PlanGrid, and that website is available to the design team, so they can pull up those documents readily and review them, and then they can return them marked up in a PDF format back to that same website, letting the contractor know if they're approved, unapproved, or if they require modification to comply with the plans and specs. So it's a process that takes some time. Sometimes submittals are rejected altogether. An egregious loss of time reviewing submittals is unacceptable. So really the plan is to get a submittal, turn it around very fast so the contractor can get the material ordered, get it on the job site. So I just want to say that the contractor and design team spent 11 months reviewing the elevator submittals. 6 of those months, nothing transpired in terms of the submittal. So we lost 6 months of time with the submittal basically not changing from the rejection from the design team to the final product that after the 6-month time period. From that point forward, modifications were made to the submittal, and we finally reached an agreement with that submittal. And of course, a lot of that took RFIs and deliberation with the subcontractor, which is TKE Elevators. So that really the problem started with them not complying with the plans and specs. So the TKE Elevator company chose to select a different elevator than the one that was planned and spec. And that modification to that submittal involved in the wall controls, which is adjacent to the door of the elevator. The plans and specs call for a remote control room, which gives you a little bit better control of the elevator equipment. Yes.
Are you saying that the elevator company was a part of the reason for the delay? Is that what you-
Part of the delay, yes, sir, they were.
Did they get permission to make the material swap or the equipment swap before they put it in?
No, when the submittal came back from the elevator company, it was reviewed and rejected by the design team.
Okay,
And then it sat idle for 6 months. Well, it just went back and forth with the same submittal without any modification.
okay, so the design team selected an elevator name, product, and everything necessary to install it, and then the elevator company chose not to use that elevator.
Right, they used a substitution. It
And
was
and did they do that with permission from
It's-
our side?
it's normally, it's normally acceptable to submit a substituted elevator.
But not to
or a
order it before
substitute
it's,
product.
but not to order it before it's approved, right?
Right, it has to comply with the plans and specs. So if it doesn't, then the design team marks it up, says, hey, we're missing something here. They send it back to the elevator company and say, please review this, comply with the plans and specs. And then what I'm saying is the elevator company sent the same submittal back to them with no modifications. And that lasted for about 6 months, that back and forth transmission. And that's available to look at for everyone on PlanGrid, which is the website we have available to us. So the next item is we had some contractor delays. Several of these delays dominoed through the work and jeopardized the construction schedule. The first item was a foundation amendment. Back early on, we were pouring the foundation. The concrete contractor apparently misread the plans. A brick ledge was supposed to have been 12 inches, and that was to accommodate the Shellcrete stone, which is a massive stone that sits on this ledge. Well, when they built it, the brick ledge was only 10 inches, not 12. So the contractor had to go in and drill into that wall, embed rebar, and then tie a cage of rebar onto the face of the foundation all the way around the building, and then set up formwork and then pour what we called a lug onto the face of the foundation to increase that brick ledge from 10 inches to 12 inches. That basically put our Shellcrete installation back by, I'm going to say, about a month to a month and a half. And then we lost that, consequently pushed the brick. The brick sits on top of the Shellcrete, so that pushed the brick back
Okay,
a
So-
month and a half. And then consequently, the EPIS got pushed back a month and a half. So that was one of the,
let me ask you a question on that, if I may. Was the print, or were the plans correct? And the contractor did not follow the plans? Or did-
apparently that's what happened. We had
Okay,
it was a dimension of 1 foot, 1 foot mark, 0 inch mark.
okay, whose responsibility is it to read the plans correctly?
It's the contractors.
Okay, no point.
And I'm sure the subcontractor spearheaded that, the concrete guy.
And about, something like that, about what type of, so that's a delay that could be with another delay, such as with the elevator, they could be running conjunction.
It could, yes.
But what was the additional cost to us as the purchaser? Were we out any additional money other than maybe different?
No, we did not pay any additional money for that change.
Okay.
That was on the contractor's shoulders to make that modification. The next item was we had improper use of truss fasteners. And on about 1/3/23, the contractor we're installing the roof trusses. And we were on the roof and noticed that the fasteners were either stainless or galvanized. So we asked the contractor to stop and correct that issue. And as time moved on, that modification was never made. In fact, they continued to use that fastener even over onto the City Hall project. And we finally reached a resolution after they were all installed that, hey, the engineer of record came back and said, spray them with some spray paint. Basically, it's a galvanized type of spray paint. So anyway, that caused some delay because we had to go back through review and approval of that process.
But again, and I apologize, but spraying them rather than having the right ones, were the right ones inspect correctly?
Apparently, that was acceptable by the engineer of record.
Okay.
The next item
me,
we
Mark.
had,
Do you mean that the fix was acceptable by the engineer?
yes,
Okay, but I think what Commissioner Cheney is asking is, did the specification call for the correct kind of nail and that wasn't used?
right, it
Okay,
did.
that-
The
thank you.
specification called for either hot dip galvanized fasteners or either stainless steel fasteners. And what we got was electroplated zinc fasteners, which were just basically fasteners. And then the next item was the underlayment was attached by cap nails, which was not approved. And we went through the underlayment manufacturer. We discussed that with the design team and the contractor. And it was, we reached a solution to the problem. Before we could go ahead and finish the roofing, we had to come back and put these underlayment patches over the top of each fastener because the fastener, the roof cap nail had a non-galvanized nail within that cap. And that cap, it was susceptible and proven in past projects that when that metal roof flexes with either heat or wind or whatever, it comes in contact with that nail, electrolysis takes place and it can deteriorate your roof. So we wanted to make sure we arrested that problem before we proceeded. So we had to go through an iteration of solutions with the underlayment team. And the solution was to cut a patch and then place it over every cap nail. So that did take some time to make that modification to the roof.
Let me regress just a little bit. I just happened to think of something. How far along were they with putting in the wrong fasteners before we discovered it was wrong?
We discovered it early on, probably they were about halfway through with the courthouse project. They had started on the east side, the southeast corner of the courthouse roof, and it progressed around to almost halfway to the north side,
Okay.
moving in a counterclockwise direction.
I don't know what's involved in replacing that with the correct stuff. But it seems to me like if we specified it in a certain way and they didn't meet specifications, they should have redone it at their cost.
Right, and there was a little bit of a reason for all of that. We were doing this during a colder months of the year, and the underlayment manufacturer requires that this underlayment be attached at a specific temperature or a rising temperature. And we didn't comply with that, so the contractor took it on their own to fasten it with these cap nails, which apparently they've done in the past with success.
Okay, and we approved that?
We didn't, no. We only found it after we got on a lift and got up there to look at some of the roof work and found out that there were cap nails on the roof.
Are they warranting their
They're-
work for
they
the
are
same length of
warranted.
time?
Yes, the underlayment manufacturer and the roof manufacturer are maintaining their full life warranty with the resolution that we came up with.
And did they adjust the cost that we were paying for the difference in the price of the thing? Because there's probably be a significant difference between stainless steel and galvanized.
Well, we did not get a credit for any of those losses, but we did get the warranty that we were looking for.
So I'm sorry, Mark, you're talking about the roof, but Commissioner's talking about the fasteners and the
Trusses,
trusses. Yeah.
we got no credit
Okay.
at all for that. No.
I think if I remember right, one of the other things that came up with the nails on the roof was when they were laying it, we had a lot of high winds and that
Yeah.
was. kind of
Right,
the
yeah, high winds and cold
reasoning that the
temperature.
roofer-
You're
Yeah.
exactly right, Commissioner Castellan. the membrane would not stay down. In fact, even after some of it was nailed and we patched over with the underlayment that required by the underlayment manufacturer, it still blew off. So we had ongoing issues with that underlayment, trying to get it to stick to the substrate, which was exterior grade moisture resistant plywood,
And what was,
CDX.
along with Commissioner Cashline's question, what would it have cost us to have delayed until the weather was more favorable?
It probably 4 months, probably 3 to 4 months, because we were in about the same time frame we are right of this day that task was taking place. If I remember correctly. So what we ended up with was a product that met the plans and specs. It complied with the underlayment manufacturer, and the roofing manufacturer had no problem with our solution. So we still have exactly what we intended to get. The next item was involving it was called PCR 41 and 46, and those were basically the doors in the 4 quadrants of the buildings. There were 2 doors facing north on the northeast quadrant, 2 doors facing east on the northeast quadrant, and the same thing around each quadrant of the building. So it was a total of 5 or 6 doors, if I remember right. Anyway, so we realized early on that, hey, these doors, as they were specified, they were called to swing into the space, not out. And this is on those little balconies you see on the roof or up near the roof, 2nd floor. So those doors were planned and drawn to swing in. Well, we can't get a wind load that complies with hurricane resistance on doors that swing in.
I mean,
So it was immediately recognized and say, hey, can we swing them out? The balcony rails prohibited the doors from swinging out. So we elected to select a window in place of the doors. And so the window solution involved building a small wall under the windows, because the windows did not go all the way to the floor. They stopped about 1 foot and 6 inches, 18 inches or so above the finished floor. So that involved building a short wall, the width of the window, 18 inches, and then it had to be veneered with exterior sheathing, interior sheetrock, waterproofing and vapor barriers, and then a brick veneer. So it was a good bit of work involved underneath the window to get it to work. The solution to comply with whatever the design team mandated that we needed to do. So during that process, that we started that process on or about 1/24/23 is what my notes show. That involved building, as I said earlier, a small wall that was about 18 inches tall out of metal studs. And now these aren't regular metal studs. These are 14 gauge metal studs. I mean, they're extremely stout, and they're 6 inches deep. It's not something you normally see. And they meet wind load and all that other good stuff. So very stout material. Anyway, the cost on that seemed to be exorbitant. We got very little credit, or what we thought was very little credit, for the doors in exchange for the cost of the windows. So we negotiated with the contractor back and forth, and we did some takeoffs on some of the material cost. And one of those takeoffs was the stud wall. How much does the stud wall cost without any sheathing on it on either side, just the metal studs? We calculated that out to be $101 a square foot, which we thought was, hey, that's exorbitant. And so we went into negotiations with the contractor, and we went from that change order started at $57,003. And by the time we negotiated with the contractor and the design team, we were able to to come to an agreement of 25,000. So we were able to reduce that cost by a great deal. And that solution was resolved on September the 26th. So it started on January. The solution resolved in September.
Now,
That's a lot of time to pass between those two dates.
who was responsible for designing it to be a wind load?
The architect and design team.
Okay. Did they offer to offset the cost of that because of a bad design?
No,
It seems to me like that'd be something to be negotiated too.
the last thing I wanted to mention was that on the roof, we had a concrete stub wall that was about 12 to 18 inches tall, and that was to separate the flat section of the roof, which we had a built-up hot mopped, or it wasn't hot mopped, it was a modified bitumen roof. And that modified bitumen roof was basically all over the flat section. And it has roof drains in it. When I say flat, it's basically a slope of 1/4 inch and 12. So it's got slope to it, and there's roof drains up there that catch all the water, direct it out to the exterior. So when I say flat, I don't want to mislead you and think it's a flat roof. It's got slope, but it is covered with a mineral surface cap sheet. It's UV resistant. It's a great roof. In fact, I think a lot about it. It's a good solution. And inside that concrete, on the outside of the concrete block wall, or the concrete cheek wall we had, was metal studs and the metal roof that you see as you drive around the building. So what you don't see when you drive around is the flat roof that's behind that metal. And on that flat roof are all the air conditioning equipment and vent stacks, and a lot of the things that need to penetrate the roof are right there. So you don't see all of that, which is, it's really kind of it's an ingenious way to give the building a look that you want, but still accommodate all the utilities and components that you need. But long story short, that concrete block wall was to have a 6-inch metal stud wall made out of the same studs that the outside wall was made out of. Heady gauge, 14 gauge, 6 inches wide, about 8 feet tall. And that concrete block, or that concrete short wall, was about 500 feet around the building. And during the course of the truss manufacturer's resolutions, they elected to delete that stud wall and just extend the trusses, the roof trusses, over onto the top of the concrete wall, which is it's a good solution. But we expected some sort of credit back for not having to build the metal stud wall. We did not get a credit for that. We did ask for that. So the last topic I wanted to go over were the change orders. And so, as you know, the change orders are typically spawned from RFIs. When the contractor sends out an RFI, those are reviewed by the design team, us as well, and basically change orders come about if there's items missing in the plans and specs that need to be done to comply with the completion of the project. Well, over the course of time, we've reviewed and the commissioners have approved 12 change orders. We've had 12 to date, but those 12 change orders contain many contractor PCOs, which are potential change orders. So in other words, when we write you guys a change order and it comes before you for voting, there may be 2 or 3 items within that comprise that change order. So these potential change orders are, and many of them come at the cost of design errors or omissions. And PGAL's errors and omissions to date total $326,321. But what I'm going to say next is important, because when we did the first VE, we took out $256,000. Second change order we did was a reduction in piling depth, and we were able to save another $78,000, I believe. So we accumulated about $320,000 in credit. So with that said, what happens is once you take the errors and omissions that delays and changes out of the credits that we have, we're about at a $20,000 positive side of the coin. In other words, we're still below what the contractor bid on the project to date, but we have 2 or 3 remaining change orders that are on the horizon that we've got to deal with. These are, and when I say 3, they're actually more than that, but the 3 that I'm talking about are something that could potentially be very large. But so the next step for us is we're going into negotiations with the contractor and with the design team in order to find an amiable solution, less cost, shorter amount of time. So that meeting's supposed to happen next week. So we're looking to reduce all of that before it comes to you. And then, yeah, I was going to say an amiable solution's on the horizon. We just got to get there. And a final note that I wanted to add was this is a beautiful building. The members of the whole project team want to complete and proudly deliver this project so that the county can experience something for many decades to come. The benchmark architectural motif that these buildings are designed by will set the stage for Rockport's future growth and development, and is a landmark to be quite proud of. We are merely weeks away from having the interior work complete. And I say that I'm not exaggerating. We're like in the last stages of painting, floor covering, and wrapping up the interior of the building. So like I said, we're about weeks away from that. However, the exterior is going to follow shortly after. And that's my report.
Mark, I'm glad to have this in front of us. It certainly helps explain some of the things, and I've been attending contractor meetings for the last few months. But when you say we are just mere weeks away from having the interior done, I'm rather surprised to hear that, because of some of the issues I know are still pending with the district clerk and the county clerk's office, where the power's on the wrong side. The counters may be incorrect. So that seems to me like that's going to take a while to fix.
Right. And if we can get through that rather expediently, we could stay on schedule to be 2 to 3 weeks out. However, if that belabors and we can't reach an agreement, yes, that will extend the interior completion out at a later date.
I'd
Yes,
like
sir.
to ask a couple of questions, mainly because I'm probably behind everybody else on there due to my lack of time being on the court.
Commissioner, is your microphone on?
Okay.
Thank you. Being I'm the newest member on the court, I'm behind on a lot of the information, different things the court has obtained. So I have a couple of questions for you. But when you say weeks, in my mind, when you say weeks, that could be 9 to 12 weeks. I mean, weeks is in a construction sense, weeks is not like 2 or 3 weeks or a month. It could be 3 to 4 months sometimes, correct?
Well-
Which is understandable from my perspective.
Well, right now, our substantial completion date is January 31st. So we're what, 2 weeks away from that, plus or minus? I think we're more like 5 weeks away from finishing the project or interior of the project. Could be a month and a half, but 6 weeks. I think we're very close. And like Commissioner Russo said, there's some outstanding change orders that we've got to tackle, and we got to get a solution to them fast.
So
And-
what is the normal difference in time? You just said substantial completion date.
The
What's the
tip,
normal difference between substantial
right?
and final?
Okay, so there's a term that's used in our industry called substantial completion, and the definition of that term is substantial completion is completion of the building in terms of it being used by its occupant for its intended use.
So that means we're moved in and going to work.
That's, the date is set for January 31st. Do I believe we're going to be at substantial completion? No, but I think we'll have most of the interior done. We're still waiting on the elevators, the elevator controls, and the generator. Those are the real issues that we have problems with.
What's
And
the
do
di-
we have any time frame? Because the last meeting that I attended, and I missed the one this past week. But the one before, there was still no time frame on the elevator.
Well, we were told that the elevator could possibly be here this week. And so we're hopeful that we'll get the elevator in next week.
But they have given us other dates that they said the elevator would be here by and
Right,
then
and
not
they're
make those
basically
dates.
going off of what TKE tells them. So they're having to rely on a subcontractor that has really no interest in the project to complete their work and get it to us at a scheduled date that the contractor has requested. It's a precarious situation.
Mark, I have a couple more questions for you. Did the county, when you talk about your design team signing off and everything on changes, does the county, did the county have anybody signing off or partaking in any of this, these changes?
All the 12 change orders that we've reviewed and approved have been through the commission.
Okay, but I mean, as far as other than Commissioner's Court, the county basically wasn't involved in a daily basis as far as what's going
Not on a
on.
daily basis. I'm your representative.
Okay.
It's my job to review the contractor's proposal.
Okay.
To ask him to sharpen his pencil, look at his timeline. That's sort of what my goal is for you.
Okay.
And we do that daily.
Okay, what type of practices did you have in place? I want to say on a daily, weekly timetable to kind of monitor potential problems that might have occurred with the.
Right. I'm here about once or twice every week to review work in progress, and then I write field reports and I send them to the judge and to L for review.
Okay, and I'd like to agree about the courthouse. I mean, as far as the appearance of it, and everything, and the city hall. But my big question or concern was, it looks like there was a disparity in communication between the interior architect and the exterior architect. And it could be because of the design going from 2-story to 3-story, because it appears the inside of the second story was built for a second story. When they dropped the third story down, they had bigger windows and everything as far as that goes. And I was trying to understand how that happened.
Well, as I said earlier, we spent about a year in schematic design. We went through 4 iterations of design, which only left about 3.5 months for the design team to take it from schematic design through design development onto construction drawings and put it out for bid. So they were compressed greatly from their normal 18 or 14, 16 months of design time down to about 3.5 months.
And I guess my last question is from a perspective of a contractor. If I'm gonna say Teal or their sub is given a design that's signed off on, it's their obligation to build it as handed to them, their blueprints.
That's right. They have to build what's on the drawings and the specs.
That's okay.
Mark, whenever we first started the project, looking at my notes, you mentioned something about the budget. When we first signed the contract, I think we budgeted 22 million, but just starting the project, it came in to like 23 million something.
Yes.
So we were $1 million over budget just signing the contract. And we did some value engineering, got some signing the contract, we're over $1 million, so we had no contingency. There's
Right.
no, yeah, there's, just to let the people know, there was never contingency built in. That's the purpose of the value engineering, and that's where our contingency was built into. And so that was a 256,000 plus another 70 something.
Right, so we ended up with about 326,000, if I remember correctly. And I've got it on my computer. I can look it up for you, but.
No, that's fine. That's random numbers.
It-
Good.
We did, by the time we did our first couple of deductive change orders and our value engineering deductive change order, we ended up with a credit of nearly $326,000. So we were able to draw from that to work these change orders out. So now what I'm saying is we're still in the good $20,000, but we have 2 or 3 pretty good sized change orders left that we're gonna have to solve.
Earlier, you mentioned about the roof insulation. And you said you were going to come back to that. Did you come back to that? Did I miss that?
The roof insulation, let's see,
Because you mentioned it was deducted during the value engineering. I
That's
was
right.
curious why that would be a proposed
Well,
change.
it was proposed and then agreed upon by the design team. So it was taken out of, it was a spray-on urethane foam that was on the bottom side of the second floor slab around the roof that's metal. So the flat roof did not get the spray on. So it was just around the periphery of the building, about 30 feet, all the way around the building. And that was taken out. We were given a credit. I think we started out with a credit of about 75,000, if my memory serves me correctly. But we agreed that we needed some of it to remain in, and that was at the lobby. So that stayed in the project, and then we ended up getting a credit for about 42,000 or.
That's what you have here, 42.5.
Right.
But I'm curious because now we have issues,
We do have
with-
issues, yes.
condensation between the roof and the second floor.
Right, so the plans called for a blanket of batt insulation, 6 inches deep, to go on the top of the concrete slab in an effort to insulate it from the hot, humid attic. Well, that does not work exactly as it was planned to work. So what's happening is we're getting the hot, humid air condensating on the cold concrete slab, and it's like a glass of iced tea on a summer day. It just condensates on the top of that slab, and then it bleeds through the concrete and drips on things below. So the solution that we're looking at in terms of a change order is to add the spray-on insulation back into the contract. But instead of doing it on the underside of the slab, we're going to do it on top side of the slab and still achieve the same results, hopefully, according to the design team's research. So the cost that we're experiencing now in terms of a change order, according to Teal Construction, is $299,000 to add it back in. And that's where we believe, with maybe research and looking for alternate contractors and alternate ways of getting the work done, we can trim that down and get it back in closer in line with what we're expecting to pay as part of the deduction that we did in the VE. Does that
Mark,
make any
when-
sense?
When you originally took that out, the recollection is, didn't you actually hire a professional
The design team hired what they termed,
that said that it wouldn't be a problem to take it out? Well, undoubtedly he was
That-
wrong, but.
that's right. They hired a envelope consultant that said, because we have the insulation on top of the concrete slab, in conjunction with the louvers that were around that periphery, which, by the way, were not installed when we experienced the condensation. Those louvers weren't there, so we had no air movement. So it was still hot, humid air in a very static form. Did not have any airflow through there. So we've got the louvers that need to go in that parapet wall on the inside of the building. So once those louvers are installed, that attic's going to ventilate a lot better than it ever did when we experienced the problem. So that's part of the solution.
So we have positive, so there's positive pressure on that area to take the moisture out or to block it.
Yes, sir. It's positive airflow. Yes, sir. We'll have airflow coming through the louvers. Actually, it comes through the soffit and out the louvers. because when the wind blows over the roof,
Mhm.
it creates a low pressure cell. And that low pressure cell causes negative pressure in the attic, sucks it in from the underside of the soffit and goes through and comes out the louvers.
Mhm.
Except the price for the
We've
installation.
got to work on
is
that. We
significantly
really have to
high.
work on that.
So yet, commissioners, there's, you said about 3 more change orders, but there's a lot of different,
There's some smaller change orders we're dealing with also, but
right?
they're not of any consequences compared to these. Yeah. The other is the extended general conditions. We're talking to the contractor about that. And then there's one for the jail standards that were missed in the design phase. So that presently is around 229,000. So we're looking to talk and negotiate with the contractor and see if we can find an amiable solution for that as well.
Do you have a rough number of what we're looking at?
No, sir, I don't. Not until we go through negotiations. But we're gonna go through every source that we can think of. We're gonna help the contractor. The contractor is gonna look at everything again, and we're gonna find hopefully an amiable solution that everybody's in agreement with.
There is a presented number. There's a
Yeah.
number out there, but like
Right.
Mark said, we're gonna have to negotiate to bring that down. But
Well, is that number privy to, I mean, is it?
it's kind of big, so we'll let them do the negotiations.
Yeah,
Let's call another meeting.
Let us work through this before we present any numbers to
So-
you.
So are you gonna have to work through all that before we can take occupancy?
Yes, sir.
Or is that
Well,
something that
the
can be done
insulation, actually, the insulation, no. But the jail standards, yes, we've got to jump that hurdle with the jail standards and get that work done before we can occupy the building. The insulation, we have some time. Until we experience those hot, humid months that induce humidity in that attic.
You won't
We
be
don't
able
have
to
that issue.
occupy and do spray foam afterwards.
We
it's
could.
too toxic.
Absolutely.
You'd have to get everybody out of the building. I would think.
Well, you could probably do it because that attic space is completely detached from the inside. We don't have any communicating air that goes from the attic.
I've used spray foam.
It's
in-
not pretty.
In boats and it's pretty toxic.
Yeah,
to
you've gotta-
breathe. You don't want to be in there. You'll get high breathing.
Right, you got to wear respirators and Tyvek suits and the whole bit.
But just let the commissioners know, we are not gonna be in there in 2 weeks.
Oh, surprise.
We got some change orders coming.
Right.
We've got,
Well, I'm very hopeful that we're gonna, I've already seen an increase in manpower on the brickwork. The contractors doing some things to accelerate work, so I'm very hopeful that we'll get there in short order.
does anybody in the audience have anything? Madam Clerk?
There it goes. Misty Kimbrough, Ramsey County Clerk. You were talking about the spray foam possibly being done after we take occupancy.
That's a possibility and we haven't.
As somebody who is paying lots of money to have documents restored and handling the mold, and you're talking about dripping it from the second floor into my office.
No, it's on the outside.
Only after July of the following year. We have time between now and then to get that work done, is what I'm saying.
I, as the custodian of my records, don't want them there until that issue is fixed.
Yes, it won't be.
Well, I, as a commissioner, and thank you for that, Misty, don't want us moving into the courthouse until that insulation is fixed.
Right. I understand.
And that's just one vote and one person's opinion, but I
No.
feel very strongly about that.
No, it is very well understood, along with Casterline's comments about the toxicity. That is a huge concern for everybody. So we will make sure we get that hurdle jump before we get in there.
I don't, this is a 40-year building,
50-year.
a 50-year building. We'll see. But I don't want to not only expose employees, but I don't want to expose the general public
Right,
into a building that's not complete.
right.
You know, I don't mean you gotta have everything touched up and painted and buffed and shined. But I would not vote to go into that building until somebody, as a friend of mine used to say, would spend the night over there the whole weekend there, without any thing. I want it done. I
Yes,
just
sir.
want it done.
Duly noted.
Can we, so we could probably expect a change order concerning time here coming up
Right,
soon?
and to speak to that, the contractor is due time. I mean, he's due time past January 31st for changes that have been implemented that we've all agreed on that maybe are due to some errors and omissions, but he is due extra time. So we've got that hurdle to jump as well. So we're going to be looking at that next week as
Why
well.
wouldn't you put the time in that each change order might call?
We do normally do that. Some of them are difficult to determine how that impacts the schedule because you don't know, for instance, when something would arrive and then what's in the way of it in order to get it implemented. So it's kind of a balancing act to get all that stuff done. But with these change orders, we'll get a time frame
Okay.
on their time expenditure.
I know there's that change order coming for general conditions. And if you recall the May 8th meeting, we were supposed to have a finished building by September 15th. A building sitting empty, waiting for elevators. Skeleton crews. Is there anything we did as a county that caused us to be where we're at today?
Well, we've had some change orders that are a direct result of, I would say, the design team being painted in a corner. And so with that said, I don't know what that time is. It would take some research to determine exactly how much time is related to some of these change orders, but you know, the objection is, the object is to get this project finished and to end up with a wonderful facility. And we're on the precipice of that, and we're just trying all as a team to get that done.
Okay. So y'all got some negotiation to do.
We do.
And we've got some approving to do or disapproving. So instead of, we got our regular set commissioners court. I'm inclined to anything associated with the courthouse build to have a special meeting so that it doesn't waste their time. They don't have to sit here all day waiting for their agenda item to come up.
Right.
So we'll get that. Just to let you know, I'm inclined to just do all special meetings for the rest of this build,
As long as it pertains to them.
as long as it pertains to the
That's a
courthouse.
good idea.
So it doesn't get lost and, y'all don't have to waste your time to,
Or wait on the regular
right.
2-week interim between our regular meetings. Something could be
Special.
discussed more quickly with a 72-hour frame to announce a
Yeah.
special meeting.
I would suggest that we set for the next several weeks, a meeting every week at a certain specific time to hear a report of where we are. I think the
We can
judge
do
is
that.
totally
We can
correct.
certainly do that.
I do have one last question. Since I've been sitting here, I've heard county clerk, district clerk, JP court, several people have said that, and the IT department, several departments said, here's what they needed to do their jobs efficiently. And what they're getting is not what they had asked for. So I would like to know whether it's the county's responsibility. Where did that get lost in the design, in the construction? Was it because of reduction in floors? How did that result?
That was probably a little before my time, but I could let the design team speak to that if you'd like for them to do
I
that.
think it'd be important because, we haven't had an answer, have we? I mean,
No, we have several things. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Pam Hurd, District Clerk. We have several things that it's my understanding may be less expensive to retrofit after we take the keys to the courthouse. But unfortunately, that also means that our records aren't going. For whatever reason, the fire suppression systems were not addressed. And they were in our request from the very first communication. So I don't know what happened. I don't know who dropped the ball there, but that's going to have to happen before we move our records there. Other than that, I don't know what else to say.
And that's a cost that has to be addressed, correct?
Correct. It is statutory. We have to have the proper system, both myself and the county clerk, and it's going to be expensive. It was not included in this bid.
Do you,
That was asked for in the beginning.
Yes, I have the documents right here.
Okay.
Pam, do you think that maybe you and the county clerk could get together and just give the Commissioners Court a list of everything that statutorily or regulatory needs to be done that is not done or has not been addressed or has been done and has been addressed?
It's pretty simple. One, it's in the administrative code and it's statutory. Any new build after 2013 has, for the permanent or historical records, have to be waterproof, fireproof, steam-proof, collapse-proof, and I forgot one, it's 5. But it's
UV
statutory.
light.
Thank you.
What is it?
But
What
is
is
that
she-
the only thing,
UV light was the other one.
Right.
is that the only thing that's left to be done? I realize that's a large item, but are there other areas that need to be addressed before we take?
There are, but I think that they're minor.
Well,
For instance,
but-
they built an extra counter inside my office, which makes it impossible for us to get to the counter to wait on people. I don't know where that came from or how that happened. But that's going to have to go. And also we have another wall that we tell them we have to be able to see through this. And they put, bulletproof sheetrock there. That's going to have to come out. So it's things that, can be done after we take the keys, but it's got to be done before we move in. So, and I'd be happy to discuss it with any of y'all.
I
Well-
also have a few things that will have to be changed before we move into our office. One of them is counter height. One of them is where the public computers are, because we cannot see it from our office. We would have to exit into the lobby where the customers are to see if anybody was at our public
Yeah.
computers.
These are things that what I'm talking about, stuff that operationally, not only stuff that's mandatory, but operationally needs to be there first day.
Well, correct. And I mean, some of it is just common sense. We have to be able to see the public. We have to be able to wait on the public conveniently.
And we're not going to change size or anything like that, but
Mhm.
things that are encumbrances right now to you. I would like to see it listed that given to Commissioners Court for discussion.
Be happy to do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Judge McGinnis, did you have something?
I think Paul. has
Oh,
to say
Paul,
something.
okay. Hey, Paul.
Hello, I'm Paul Bonnet with PGAL. We are the architect of record for the project. Larry Ursick over here with Architects is here too. I just want to speak to some of the design issues. We stand by our design. If there are items, some of these items I'm just learning about today. So if there are items that we need to take care of or fix, we will work on those, and we'd be happy to talk to the court or the judge or whoever we need to about, any responsibility that we might have there. So that's really all I want to say. I don't want to delve into all the details and the long history of this project, but just say that we're here to fix anything that was a design issue and, stand behind our design.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Judge McGinnis, I'll let her go first.
The only thing that I was going to say is I've addressed the courts already with the problems that we had on the design for the JP courts. We still need modifications on some of those. We cannot just have a call center, because I can tell you, we're not going to be able to process warrants. We're going to have to eliminate a lot of stuff that we normally do on a daily basis. And that's going to cost the county money. Right now, the county, I think we're at 6,000 warrants for $1.4 million. How am I supposed to produce more warrants for the county when we don't have the space?
Thank you, Judge. Sir, yes, sir.
I'm John Murray. I'm president of Teal Construction. Also a permanent resident here in Rockport. I plan on being here for the rest of my life, so I take a lot of pride in these buildings, and I've got a lot of concern about them, how they come together as much as anybody in this room. I had quite a few things I wanted to address. First thing I want to do is I want to respond to some of the things I just heard from Mark. Let's first go back to the elevator submittals. We've given y'all some binders, and in those binders, we've addressed some of these issues that are being talked about right now. And one of my concerns has been that not all the information gets to the court. Not everything gets back to y'all. People see what's going on. They in good faith say, okay, this is my opinion of what's happening right now, and that's what gets expressed here, and you don't hear everything. When you look in that binder, there's a section there about the elevators, and it goes back, and it goes all the way back into the original dates from the very beginning. But just to real quick summarize, I'll just hit some high points. The elevator problem started with some design issues related to electrical components and the design of the electrical gear that had to be in place for the elevators to function and operate. That took some time to resolve. That's in that binder. Again, those are summaries in the binder, and all the actual documents and details to back all that up is available. We have it and happy to share it. But that stopped it in the beginning. That was the first thing that slowed down the elevators. And yes, you're correct. There was a long period of time that sat there. It seemed like nothing was happening, but there was a lot of back and forth in that time about the electrical issues. Electrical plan showed 2 elevators, there was 3. And all that, even that not only affected the elevators, but it affected the main switchgear. The main switchgear was the first major problem that affected the critical path of this job. I'm gonna go through this pretty quick, so I know we don't have a lot of time. Brick ledge, he's exactly correct. The concrete foreman on the site read the drawing. It had a 1, a little dash, a 0 and 1/2. And out in the field, he read that 10.5 inches. It should have been 1 foot 0 and 1/2 inch. His fault, our fault. We've dealt with it. We paid for it. Again, the critical path of this job is being driven today by the items that are beyond anybody's controls. The electrical gear, the elevators, the elevator controls. Today, the jail standards plans, that's driving the critical path today. That's all pushing the completion date. The truss fasteners, the issue with the truss fasteners, and the part that we didn't hear, and it was never completely agreed to, but there was a debate about whether the fasteners were exposed to the elements. Because these trusses were on an inside condition, the fasteners were inside of the attic. The truss manufacturer and the roofer all felt that that was not an exposed condition. In that case, the fasteners they were using were fine. But we did go back, find a solution that the engineer agreed with, and it was in the specs that if something has to be coated, then you coat it this way, and that's what was done. The cap nails, Judge, you remember I came to your office about the cap nails with a sample. You can look at any metal roof being put on in this town, and the underlayment is held down with cap nails. Then it's the same roof system, the same type of roof. Now, the difference over here is this is a commercial roof, which the roof panel actually stands off of the underlayment about 1/4 to 1/2 inch. So that nail head was never going to hit that panel. We went to Suprema, who provided the underlayment. They said it would not void their warranty, that they understood you had to have the nails to keep it from blowing off the roof that time of year. And the roof manufacturer also, I forget who's the manufacturer of that roof? Well, whoever, they said it wasn't a problem with their warranty either. So, but we got the roofer to go back, do whatever he was asked to do. And so that everybody was satisfied, it wouldn't be a problem. There's a section in there about these, this, I think it was change order 46. Is that the right one? I think it was change order 46. There's a section in that binder about change order 46 where we went from 57 to 27,000. That's true. It went from 57 to 27,000, but it wasn't a matter of us and our subcontractors elevating the cost $30,000 and everything being the same. There was a long period of time that went on there where we discussed changing things, different ways to do it, deleting some work. Correct me if I say something wrong, folks. But a lot of other things happened to reduce that cost. It wasn't just us. Let's talk about the truss system and the roof curb. In the specs, the truss system was called out to be a designated design. And in our world, that means that the manufacturer of the truss is also the engineer of the truss, and it's up to him to design that truss. So in their bid, they take their design and they bid it based on their design. They designed those trusses to meet all the requirements of the specs. And that was the design they came up with, and that's what they furnished. So no, there wouldn't be any credits for that. They just had a better mousetrap in their design. The completion dates right now, that's being driven, I think, by these change orders and getting worked out what we're going to do with the roof insulation, but primarily what we're going to do with jail standards. Jail standards are the prime driver now of the actual completion date. And that's got to be worked out because it's part of these change orders, and that's got to be determined. The insulation, our job in providing value engineering is to go back and look for everything that might possibly be a better way to create value in the project or to save money in a project. Our team goes through and they look at the drawings, they look at the plans, we come up with our ideas. We go to every subcontractor that we got on the job and we ask them to do the same thing. At that point, we compile all this and then we pass all that along to the owner and his design team, with the understanding that we are not professional designers. We are not architects. We're not engineers. These are things that can reduce costs. Now you need to look at it and tell us if that's going to create any kind of conflict or be anything that doesn't meet the design requirements. The removing that insulation from the bottom side, if you can imagine walking in a room like this and being able to look up overhead and spray what's overhead and walk out, that's what was originally there. What has to happen now is this equipment, the equipment that these spray foam companies use is a big contained trailers, as big as that whole desk you are sitting behind. That has to be picked up, put on a roof. Then we got to get the hoses, run them through all these trusses, get them inside of that area. And it's difficult. It's going to be very labor intensive, very time consuming. And we had to remove, there's also the cost of removing all the insulation that was put up there that got wet. That's all part of that cost. So I think I hope everybody can understand there's more parts and pieces to these things that need to be understood. And then a full understanding of why things are what they are can better be evaluated. It's my hope that all the parties involved in this job will come together in good faith, sit down and negotiate all the open items, which have to be negotiated globally. It's the whole picture. It's the change order from August to or from September to January 31st for change orders. Part of that cost are subcontractors that have also come to us asking for money that we have to pass through. And we have to get that resolved. Then we need to look at this extension we're asking for going into April for additional elevator delays. That needs to be decided. And then with that, once we get those off the table, if we can get our general condition issues resolved, then we can start looking at each of these other items strictly at cost. And if we get a cost from a subcontractor, we negotiate with that subcontractor, we challenge that subcontractor, he comes back and says, no, that's it. We hand that off, we pass that on, we're told it's too much money, we don't like that, we go back and we get into that kind of going around in a big circle, and we do the best we can to hold costs down. And I will say, if every everything was approved today where we think it could end up, the total change orders on this job would be would be around 4.5% of the original cost of the job. And in all the construction projects I've been involved in my lifetime, that's not unusual. It's not that far out of whack, especially considering the delays we've had and the things we've had to do to get this thing finished, and coming back with the jail standards adding work, and that's added work. There's more things we have to do. I do want to stress that the critical path is what drives this, is what's driving everything. In the back of that handout we gave you, there's a critical path schedule that depicts what's been driving the critical path. You know, I'm not saying we haven't had problems. We have. We've had problems with a couple of subs out there, and we're still dealing with it. But the critical path itself that's driving the date of this thing is being driven by the supply chain problems, and in some cases, timing and getting decisions and resolution to problems. So I thank y'all. Any of y'all have anything to add? Good. Okay. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I commend you. You've made mistakes and you come and you fixed them. You've made mistakes and you've come and you fixed them without charging us. Appreciate that. All right. Do commissioners have anything else? Do you have any other questions? We got the design team here. We got the builder.
The only thing I'd say is, we're all disappointed it's taking this long getting the courthouse, but it doesn't seem that we've had anybody other than labor conditions, which I thoroughly can understand, things that just happen. I mean, this is not building a house. I mean, it's building a massive building. And I've seen Teal Constructions work many years, and I really thank them for doing that. And I think Broadus has done us a good job. And and all the people involved, I think have done a good job. But we're getting right to the point, we're almost to the point of the needle, and it gets real narrow and real sharp down in that area. And this is our last chance to get a good product at a reasonable price. And I just wish you the best. And I do think that the one thing I think that would have been a little bit better from the court side is that, we all could go to the meetings and stuff, but I'm busy, I work. And I know that everybody on this team on this court, we've got other things to do. I wish in retrospect, we had a little bit more information going along than just issues, tell us some of the good stuff that's going on and whatever. This is going to be a magnificent building, and City Hall is going to be a magnificent building. And we're going to be the talk of the coast for a long, long time as far as construction and things go. And the overall cost of this thing, sounds daunting and everything, but this is a hell of a building. Forgive my French, but that's the only way I could express it.
I have a question that somebody just asked me yesterday. Why haven't the roofs on top of the towers been finished? I mean, I see some roof left on the city hall and stuff, but those towers, they're bare, and actually they've had to replace the covering over it at least one time that I've noticed, but it doesn't seem like a very big area to not be done.
Right. No, so I guess the short answer is just the sequencing of the work that still has to take place. So on each side of that tower, we've got to go up with some masonry. And in order to get the masonry in, we've got to be able to set up scaffold, build work platforms, et cetera, to do that. We've got to get that out of the way. We've got to figure out what we're going to do with the attic on the insulation so that all butts up and gets married back into the masonry that actually goes past the roof line. And then once all that work is complete, then we can close up the roof, and then we get the rest of the panels on.
All right.
Anything else?
Nope. I'm just, to move forward, I'm gonna leave the negotiations to the professionals.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what, it's still a hard pill for me to swallow, thinking we got a credit for that insulation. I'm sorry, I'm coming back to it for 42,000, and then, to put it back in, it was really high. And I understand you got to get the material up there, you know, but when you took it out, I mean, was that number, you know, getting the equipment up there, was that included, or it just, that's going to be a hard pill to swallow.
Sure. On the installation specifically, we're talking about apples and onions. You know, the credit was much different application than what we're doing now. And what John said earlier about setting the machine on the roof, we actually can't do that. The machine and the trailer is going to sit on the ground. The hose has got to go up through the soffit. So there's still work we can't complete on the exterior of the building until that installation is done. So that makes it even more complicated and expensive. It's multiple setups, and you got to string that hose all the way up. What's the eave height, Justin? So you've got some pretty big challenges there. And then you're inside the trusses that are 24 inches on center. All the whole way around you're fighting too. Head height.
What is your position? I'm sorry, just.
Jason Hoag, Senior Vice President for Teal.
Still hard to swallow. Thank you.
I understand.
I have one question, I guess, for Renee. Renee or Elle, we were doing a walkthrough couple of weeks ago. I was with y'all. And it had been after a rain and we saw water draining down the walls, I think. Was that an area of the roof that's not completed?
Yes.
That was in the upstairs conference room, I believe.
Yeah, that was in the conference room, which is underneath the tower, where the roof is not complete.
Okay.
El Morales. County Development.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
Specific to the insulation in the attic, Teal went out and hired our own consultant because we kind of saw this coming and we wanted to make sure before we raised the red flag, this was in fact an issue. So about a year ago to date, we issued a letter from a consultant that we hired out of our own pocket that says, hey, this isn't going to work. So we brought it up a long time ago. And I just wanted to point that out.
Oh.
It's been an issue for a year now.
And the county knew about it or Mark knew about it?
Yes,
And
everyone was
okay.
aware. Right. And once we got that, we went through a couple of different pricing or one, I think, which was applying a vapor barrier to the top side of that roof deck, which was about $100,000. But as much as what I can remember, we were told, hey, it was not taken as an option. We're not going to need it. And then when we put the insulation, the bad insulation Mark talked about up there, yes, the louvers were not cut in, but the attic wasn't completely closed in. The soffits were still open and it was open around the tower. And there were some pretty big areas that were open. So there, when you walked in there, you could tell the wind was moving through there. And once that got put in, that's when we noticed, hey, it was wet underneath it. And I directed Justin and my team, go up there and rip it all out because I don't want these problems later. I want to get that nasty insulation out of there. I don't want it sitting on those trusses. I don't want to cause any more problems because of that. So we're the ones that decided to rip it out on our own nickel and get rid of it.
Thank you. All right. Anybody got anything else? No? If not, I'll entertain. Oh, Mark.
I'll just say that part of this that Jason's mentioning is part of the negotiations next week. So our attempt is to work with the design team, the contractor, and find a solution that is amiable to everybody.
Thank you. No, anything else? I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Got a motion, got a second.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Dupnick,
Aye.
Judge Garza.
Aye.